So this will be a tutorial for Flip Project Management System dashboard. This was originally just a house flipping dashboard, and then with all the features and other things, I've now moved it to a pro level product. So starting out, this is your home tab. So this is kind of a new feature we've added in a couple workbooks. And it's just a shortcut panel to really kind of help navigate the workbook, especially as you start to grow and increase tabs for properties. It can get a little busy, so this makes it a little easy to get around. As an example, so all these are going to be your key tabs, and then you've got custom ones. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail there, but there's a tutorial of how to set up these custom buttons if you add tabs or add properties or whatever you want to link. But as an example, so I can click dashboard, it'll take me to the dashboard, and then for all the tabs, you've got a button in the top left corner, and that will simply take you back home. So if I go to my timeline, I can go back, and it's just a nice quick feature to kind of navigate instead of trying to scroll through the tabs at the bottom. Now we'll start with the dashboard. So this is your overall metrics, and as you add things to the workbook, this will begin to populate. If you're not in the US, you can choose one of our other currencies. We got it set up for 5. Outside of that, most people are just going to leave this at USD. And then you've got a profit trend start date input. So this is the first month. This is for this graph over here to the right. So all of these are just going to populate automatically based on the properties. But if you want to specifically track revenue or profits, in this case for a 12-month period, this will do that, and you can select what that 12-month period is. So if you have 25 properties and it spans 5 years, this gives you some flexibility of what month you're looking at. Now we'll come back to the partner summary. Now I've got some things to cover, but I need to go over some other inputs first. So data table, will come back to supplier lists. This is just a really simple list to manage subcontractor supplier contacts, name, address, phone numbers, etc. Again, really simple list. It's expandable. It's got a ton of rows in it, so you can add some if you need to. The partner investor list, so this will play into that partner summary. So this list you'll be able to select from here. So if I go to, you'll see these names are what's currently in this partner list. So let me go back to that. So in the partner list, you simply got a name, phone, email, address. You don't need any more information than that. But think of these as anyone that's, invested money or you're working with on your house flips. You want to document them here. That way, when it comes down to profit split, you got some names you can kind of allocate and split it up by, and I'll walk you through that when we get to that point. The next tool is inspection checklist. So you can select the property up here, and if you got multiple properties, you can make copy of this tab. It's really simple. But ultimately, I've got one in here, and again, you can make copies, but you select your property. So which one are you doing the inspection for? I've got a few things already pre-listed, but you can delete them out. This is just something I pre-fill. You can, add your own, whatever you need to. But one thing I did add is whether a professional is required or not. So for some things, you may be able to inspect yourselves. But some things you may say, nope, I want a professional to do it, and you just make a mental note, and then you can put some comments and details. It might be who that is and the date they're going to do it. And that's really all that is. It's printable. So if it's format, you print it, it'll come out on 8.5 by 11. The ROI assessment. So now we're getting a little more depth. So this is front end before you ever purchase the property. You've got a profit goal. So let's say you're targeting 20%. You've got an estimated after repair value, so your ARV. And then it's going to do an estimated total flip cost based on all these inputs down here. And those inputs are, and we'll come back to the assessment. So the projected costs, so you got purchase price, acquisition carrying costs, or other part of your acquisition and carrying costs, buyer concessions, selling expenses, so maybe you're marketing, maybe you're posting stuff online, maybe you're you're not renovating, adding furniture to the house as part of selling, whatever. And then your total sale commissions paid to any realtors, agents, etc. And the renovation cost number will auto-populate from this table here. So this is where you get to kind of itemize your renovation cost. And then you can plug in a renovation contingency. So I've got it set to 15%. You can change it to 10. If you're really good, you can change it to 5, whatever you're comfortable with and want it to account for. But then you can come through and you got a different type, you got what the item is, and then the projected cost for that. And there's a ton of rows in here, but this is where you can itemize and break down your renovation. It'll come up here, and then you get your total. This is where that total cost, so estimated flip cost, is a summation of all these things down here. Now, the assessment results is from all the inputs. So you had a goal of 20%, so based on the 425, that's 63,000. Your actual, in this case, because of all the costs, would be 25, so you're in the green, you're over your goal. And the difference from your goal is 5.3%. So great. But I've also got a 70% rule check in here. So if I were to, what you'll see is 160,380. So that's your max purchase price. So that's a pass. So your 70% rule pass. So if I came in here and changed this to 165,000, you're going to notice that's a purchase price fail. So you still make profit, but it failed the 70% rule. And I've got a note in here that kind of breaks down what that math is, but you can also look it up online. Change that back to 155. And let's say you decide, okay, now I want to purchase the property. This all adds up and makes sense. And actually, additionally, I'm going to cover one other thing. So the carrying cost, for you to determine that, so actually your inspection list is going to play a role in how you come up with all these costs, right? Your renovation costs. And then on carrying costs, we have a tool for that. So there's a carrying cost tab, and you can select the property. Maybe the property tab doesn't exist, so you wouldn't have one, or maybe it does and you're just trying to calculate it after. It depends on order, how you do things. But let's say you're going to finance it or not finance it. So if you're going to finance it, I've got a little finance calculator up here. So you can plug in amount borrowed, the interest rate, the term. And then you can plug in, so, in terms of carrying costs, you're going to get back your sum of your monthly payment. So you're really only losing the interest. So when you come down here, you'll see financing interest only is one of your items you're going to, determine for carrying costs. And let's say you plug in all your items, so taxes, insurance, electric, gas, water, yard maintenance, security, if you got a couple others, or you can change these up. Then you got a date start and a date end. So when do you think you're going to have the property, and when you're going to turn these things on and turn them off? And then what do you think the estimated monthly cost is going to be? And again, for the financing interest only, remember, don't put the whole monthly payment in your carrying cost, because you're going to get a lot of that back. You're putting that value into the property. And when you sell it, it's going to come back. So don't double hit yourself on the carrying cost. But you are going to lose the financing cost. So that's money you're going to lose. So what this table will do is it will break down based on these dates and the cost. It'll basically drop them into a 12-month period, and it'll sum it all up. So your carrying cost in this case is $7,235. So for this property and these inputs, you got $7,200. So that would go into your carrying cost, either on your ROI or into your actual property tab, in which we get back to that. And then let's go back to, so that's an ROI. I covered this. We'll come back to the project timeline, because that would come after. Now let's go into one of the property tabs. It's a little busy, but it's not that bad. So top left working down, you've got your property name and your total renovation budget. This isn't your flip budget, it's your renovation budget. And you're just setting a target, so when your renovation costs sum up over here, it either is red or green. It's red if it's over, it's green if it's under. But you're just kind of setting a target budget to kind of track to. Then you've got renovation contingency. So again, it's set at 15, you can set it to 10, set whatever you want to. And then your after repair value. So there's a note. You're going to estimate this number, and then you'll come back in and you can change it later to what it actually appraises to, or whatever else. And this is just an input. Your key value is really going to be the actual sale value you plug in later once you sell the property. And then you've got home square feet. So you input that, and then you're going to come up and begin to plug in this itemized budget spend. And you've got 3 key columns. So this table flows all the way down. So you've got acquisition, carry-in, selling expenses. It's basically the same thing as the ROI assessment, but now you're starting to break these costs down. You got agent fees, realtor fees, buyer concessions, and then your renovation contingency, which auto-populates that as a percentage of your total renovation budget, which you itemize and break down here. So I think I have this set up. It won't quite copy and paste over, but you can copy paste values and you copy it in sections and copy it right over into your table here from the ROI assessment if you want to do it that way. Now for all the way down, you've got projected. So what's your projected spend? And then you can plug in your actual and you're going to get a variance. So if you're plus or minus on your budget, this will kind of tell you. But in addition to that, if you don't want to use actual, that's fine. If you don't want to track that, this renovation cost, actually all these costs are going to be based on what you put in under projected or actual, either one or the other. So if I decided, you don't have to use actual, you'll see there's values up here. But if I came in later and said, hey, this is 145,000 and not 150, it's going to change to 145,000. And you'll see your variance was, hey, I was under by 10,000. So that's a positive number. And then if I said, nope, I'll say it's 165,000. Whoops, I did that backwards, didn't I? 165. So now I'm under by 10,000, and now my acquisition cost shows the 165. So it's going to show whichever, if you use actual, it's going to override it. If you use projected, it's going to use the projected value. That's kind of basically how it works. The math's a little trickier than that, but essentially it's going to account for whichever column you end up using. And as an example, let's say holding carrying cost, you had a 0 and then you end up spending 5,000. It's going to see that and it's going to populate so now you've got as a summation 155 and 5, so it's the 160,000. So that's your total. So the math is a little tricky on how I'm doing that, but it works. And then again, you got your renovation, so you can break this down, itemize it. And the way this will flow is you do the ROI, and then you'll get into documenting your itemized spend. And now you go to the detailed spend and expense tracking. So think of it as I'm going to take these items and now I'm going to track me actually paying people, or if you're doing the work, you're buying materials, whatever it is. So as you're using the detailed spend and expense tracker, you can come through, add your dates. It's tracking name or category. So maybe this is, if you want to use a key name as appliances, or if you want to use a key bucket, or I say bucket is appliances, or a contractor name, like I got Hill Plumbing in here. And the reason it's a tracking name is you'll see over to the right, it's spent to date. So as an example, Hill Plumbing, it says spent to date is $41.49. That $41.49 is specific to spent to date for Hill Plumbing. So for each row, it's representative of that row is what you've spent to date. So as an example, Hill Plumbing, I'll add another one in. So it still, see it says $41.49. So it's the same. It's looking. Now if I come in here and add $1,000, it's $51.49. Now my total to date across everyone I've spent money or any place materials I've ordered, etc., is the $85.49, but I've paid $51.49 to Hill Plumbing. And the key thing with that is if you got questions or somebody says you didn't pay them or you did pay them and you're trying to pay attention to, actually better yet is who you're going to 1099 and how much you're going to 1099 them for at the end of the year. Well, now you have a nice quick number that you can pull up and say, oh yeah, that's pretty quick, or that's really easy. My total I spent on Hill for this property is the $41.49. And then you can flip through a few of them and do the same thing. And then you can also sort this table, which I probably should just make a separate video for. I'm not going to go through that now, but this is kind of sortable. One of the things for the paid in full, it says you paid in full, but there's several categories. So let's say, as an example, you got a contractor coming in and they're doing several things for you. So I got one as Jefferson Actually, this is a bad example, but Jefferson Lumber, I bought material, so it's just a material deposit. But let's say Hill Plumbing, they had a big job, a couple bathroom remodels or something like that. So I could put in here, instead of full payout for the job, I could tag it as, this is just a draw. So let's say they were going to be working on this project for 3 weeks. Then I can put draw, 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 and then when they're finally paid in full, I tag it as full payout. So that way, for the same description detail and the same contractor, I can note, hey, I've given you guys 3 draws for this amount, and then you've been paid in full, and I've got the sum for what you paid in full. So it's just kind of some neat features with the detailed expense tracking to help you stay on track for, who you're paying and how much you're paying and where you're spending the money at. And there's quite a few rows. You'll notice there's a thing in here I can actually highlight a bunch of rows, copy, and insert more. So it's for additional rows, insert rows, 2 rows above this one. And which I think if I don't have a tutorial, I'll be getting one made and putting online for exactly how to do that. But ultimately, you probably have 100 plus rows for detailed expense tracking. You may need more, you may need less. It's up to you what level of detail or whether you use this table or not. But how all this will play is, once you've got all this populated, you can come back and say, oh, this is what I actually spent based on my detailed and expense tracking. You've got your variances. And then you've got actual sale date and actual sale value. So these 2 inputs are critical for your dashboard. So I'm actually going to use my shortcuts. So those dates, it's going to play into your profits by month. So this is not going to populate unless you use, I'm going to go bounce back now. We should have shortcut to that property tab. But these 2 dates are going to play into your profits by month. So you'll want to update that. And it also, I got some pretty cool features in here. So let's pretend I'm going to take both these dates out. You'll notice that one went pink. So total profit, profit sale. It's saying update sale value, update sale value. So right now it's saying you haven't sold it, so you don't have profit. So if I come back in and I plug in a sale value, I'm actually going to undo. Let's see if that works. So now I got a sale value, but I don't have a sale date, so it went pink. So it's telling you, it's giving you a flag to say, hey, if you put a value in here, you need to put a value in here as well as when did you sell it. That way it rolls into your dashboard. And then I'll undo that. And it's the vice versa, they both work. So if I take this out, it's going to flag me and say, hey, you need a dollar value in here, you've got a date. So just kind of some cues. And then up here in the top right, seller commission calculator, it takes into account this actual sale value. And I don't think I'm lying here. Yep, oh no, so no, it doesn't. It plays on this. So you'll want to come back and update this after repair, because it's part of your cost. So it's before you sell. So you're doing your estimation. So it's got the 21,280 and it's based on this number here. So once you get ready to sell and you're looking at offers, you can plug this in and say, okay, it's 425. I'm about to pay 5%. So that's my 21,280, which then you can come back down to your realtor and agent fees and plug in that 21,280, which if I did that, I can do that now. It's going to roll up here to commission costs. Oop, I didn't hit enter yet. So there's your commission, 21,280. So I under budgeted and it impacted my total profit. Now if I take that back out, I'll ping that to a 0. See, now I'm back up to 112. So it works. It flows right through like it's supposed to. Let's see, what else am I missing? So there's a link feature, which I don't have a ton in this workbook to show you, but basically the dashboard, there's a tutorial for this. That's a tutorial button actually, but I'll cover it briefly. And the way it works is, if I go back to my dashboard, you'll see I've got basically 25 properties, and this dashboard populates off all the property tabs which flow into your data table. And this is hands off. You don't do anything with it, but it's how I organize all the data from all the tabs and make all this thing link and flow like it's supposed to. And you'll notice each of these property names, so property tab, so property 1 actually is tied to the property 1 tab. Oops. Property 2, etc. So property 3, you'll see it says add new property tab. That's because they don't exist, and I've got a tutorial for how you add those tabs in here. And it's in the It's actually in the PDF, but basically you right click, move or make a copy, and then when you create a copy, you'll rename it to property 3. And you usually do that with the template. And once you name it to property 3, it will then link right up. I guess I can do that. It'll only take me a second. So as an example, I'll use a template, move or copy, create a copy, okay. I'll drag it back down here just so you can kind of see. Now if I change this to property 3, and now I'll go back to my data table. Now it says update property tab. So it doesn't say add new, now it says update. So it's telling me, hey, I see your tab, but you're missing some information. And that's the same with property 2. So property 1's got all these inputs showing. Property 1 does. Property 2 is missing a bunch. And if I go to property 2, you'll see there's a bunch of blank stuff in here. There's no dates. All this isn't populated, etc. So it sees a few values, but it doesn't see everything. Let's go back to the data table. Now, so you're going to see, so if I delete this tab and I go back, it dropped out. Okay, so it says add new. But let's pretend you did a flip, and your capacity for this linking system is basically, or what's linked to your dashboard is basically 25. However, this workbook will hold way more tabs than that, upwards of 200. It actually has a limit on data size, and it's not tab size. So let's just say for this setup, you're probably 200 tabs. Definitely 100, probably 200. But you can only link 25 here. So what I've got set up is this link to dashboard. So if I change this to no, I didn't lose anything. It's all here. Everything I did for the property is all right in the sheet. But if I go to my data table, it now says link property tab. So, and then I could come up here and change these names. So you'd have to unlock the tab, but I could change this to say property 26, property 27, property 28, and I could link those tabs into this table. But basically you kind of have, in a way, unlimited capacity. So I say 25 properties, but technically it's way more than that. So we'll go back to property 1. Yes. You could also just rename this tab and rename the new tab to property 1. You could do it that way too. It'll work. It would end up linking back up to here. And then, so let's see. Okay, so now you've gotten to where you're ready to sell. Let's say you haven't sold yet, haven't updated these dates, but you've got some offers and you want to review those offers. So there's an offer review tab. And what you can do is select the property, choose your current offer, plug in the value, and it's going to auto, based on when you select this property name, which is going to line up with the property table. So I'm going to show you that. So property 1, you'll see this is the property name, which shows up in the header, and that also shows up in the data table. So then in the offer review, I'm not selecting the tab, I'm just selecting the property name because that's a little more easy it's a little easier for people to follow. And then it's going to auto pull in all this property cost information from this tab. So all this itemized stuff that rolls up here, that's what it's pulling in. So I'll go back to that. And then from that, it's going to tell you, hey, your estimated profit is the 112,810. And if I go back to that property, it's exactly what it shows here. So let's go back to offer review. Now, a neat feature I just added is the profit breakdown. So let's say you had 2 or 3 people, let's say 2. All right, let's just say you had a 50-50 split. So let's say John Coffee. So you get 50% and John gets 50. So those are your splits, your profit breakdown. Hey, we're just going to net 56,000. But let's pretend John, so that's kind of covers that. So it's just an offer review to give you your breakdown. But let's say John is actually also an agent. And he's going to get some of the seller commissions or some of the agent commissions. So we'll change it to John. And let's say he, out of the total commissions, he gets 50%. So let's say it's 5% and he gets 2.5 of it. So he gets 50% of the total commissions. So Mike's going to make 56,405, but John is actually going to net, because of their commissions, the 61,780. And it's just a little feature we have for some realtors who realize a lot of agents like to get into flipping. So that's a little feature we added at the bottom. And then so then you've got the partner summary. So let's say you did the offer review, you sold the property, documented everything in the property tab, and then now you got your partner summary. So now I can come back in and say, okay, Mike, and it's just a documentation sheet. It doesn't do anything fancy. It doesn't go anywhere. It does have a check feature to make sure as you plug in your percentages, they always add up to 100, so you're not overcompensating for something that's not there. Let's say, okay, Mike got 50% in this case, and then see how it flagged at 50? Hey, you need 100. That's all right. We're going to fix that. Because then John, he got his 52. And there you go. See how that worked out? And then, let's see, we'll do another one. Let's do Beach Street. Let's just do the same one again. I want to just double check something. Yep, so it's all plugging up. So that automatically plugs zeros in here. So once I populated one, these other populated with 0 unless I put a percentage in. So it's doing what it's supposed to. I just saw it. I want to make sure that looked odd at first, but it's right. So I can change that back to a 0, and then change that back to 100. And basically, this is a nice table where you could share it with other investors, or just kind of document for yourself, and then you could share it later. Or at some point, I'll probably add another dashboard, but just a partner dashboard, and it would populate based on name and how much they've, earnings that everybody's had. But I haven't done that yet, so that'll probably be in the next. We're on 5. What version we're on right now? Let's see if I go back here. So I'm on 5.4, so probably 5.5. That might have it in there. I think I covered everything. I went through it really quick, so if you have questions, feel free to ask, shoot us a message. I'm happy to do for these pro level products. I'm happy to do Teams calls. I'm happy to teach and explain. I will say that I make mistakes, especially I make a lot of improvements. So if you see something that doesn't look right, feel free to tell me. And often when I'm doing Teams calls or somebody's asking questions, I see or think of something that I didn't think of before, and it usually turns into a feature or an improvement. So don't hesitate to ask. And actually, I'm seeing one other thing I didn't cover was the recommended workflow. It spells it out in a ton of detail right here. I'm not about to read all that. And you'll notice there's literally notes all throughout the workbook. I do this to kind of help when people have questions. I roll it into notes, so use it to your advantage. And then I've got the PDF guide the product comes with, and for the recommended workflow, you'll notice there's a tab that says workflow. This is the same as this, but this is just a visual to kind of show you how the tool was designed to be used. You could flex it a little different, I'm sure, but ultimately, you're going to get the best value following this process with the tools. But anyway, that's it. You got any questions? Again, shoot us a message. Thanks for watching.